Well, there's a lot of competition in the San Diego real estate market, that is for sure. But should you pay above the appraised value? Big topic. A lot of people doing this. Is it smart? Is it wise? Is there a better alternative? Steve Ploetz is in the house today. What's going on, brother? Good to see you.
Man, those hands are those lady hands.
Shake those lady hands.
I always
I've got to do something. I've got to start moving rocks around the house or something. I got to get my hands back. This is ridiculous. Anyway, as far as appraised value is concerned, a lot of people waiving the appraisal contingency.
Yes.
So I want to talk about that as just an in general thing.
Yeah.
There's a reason it's there. Waiving the appraisal contingency, paying above appraised value, doing appraisal bridge, which is, hey, we can't just waive the appraisal contingency, but we'll cover $10,000 or $20,000 or a certain fixed dollar amount. We'll call that appraisal bridge. Is it a wise thing to do? Is this a sign that we might be at the top of a real estate market?
Well, I think the game is changing, and the game is changing every single day. And as a buyer, I think that if you're seeking advice of your parents, let's just say, who have done one transaction in the last 35 years, or of a buddy who bought even 3 years ago, the game has changed. And I think that that's very, very important to recognize and to realize as a buyer. Years ago, we would never recommend to a buyer that they waive the appraisal contingency with their offer, because essentially what you're doing is you're saying, hey, the value is X, and no matter what it appraises at, I promise that I will come to the table and get us back to that X price. And of course, the appraisal is in place in order to protect the lender, but it's also in place in order to protect the borrower, to make sure that they aren't overpaying for something like that. But the game has changed. Last year, in 2021, we accepted, I have a business partner, she and I accepted 3 different offers on 3 different listings that had no contingencies. Basically saying, 0. Hey, we are giving you our earnest money deposit. One of them, on a property here in La Jolla, wrote an offer such that they would release the earnest money deposit to the seller. $125,000 would be released to the seller on day 1. It would appear in the seller's bank account. And at that time, once the earnest money appeared in the seller's bank account, then we could change the property to pending status. Like, the game has changed.
Wow. But do you think that's a sign of anything? Like, we know that it's a frenzy.
Right.
And there's lots of different levels of frenzy going out there. That's the most frenzy that I've heard of. But there's lots of different levels of frenzy. Is that a sign of anything, maybe, that, last time we were paying above appraised value,
well,
and we were waiving
I think that
appraisals.
when I start to get too deep into the astrology of like, me reading into, if a buyer waives all their contingencies with their offer, does that mean that this market is propped up in a way that's phony or something? I think that's kind of what you're asking.
Or is it ahead of itself? No, it doesn't have to be phony. Markets get ahead of themselves. Bitcoin goes to 60,000, then comes back to 30,000. Just gets ahead of itself. People get excited about it, and they see the long-term potential, and so people say, well, I'm going to buy long-term, but then they end up, selling. So, but when we're talking about real estate, though, it's different. I mean, and it's a totally different circumstance. The inventory situation is definitely playing a big role in this.
Right.
But for people who are waiving appraisal contingency, not necessarily all contingency, but the appraisal itself, it is there to protect the transaction, to create a middleman, right? A third party come in and say, okay, hey, crazy kids, the parent, if you will. The parent in the transaction is the appraiser, comes in and goes, all right, you crazy kids.
But this is the challenge. I love interrupting you. It's like one of my greatest, it's one of my, like the greatest joys that I have is being
really
here, waiting for that moment when you're about to say something that's going to change our viewers' lives, and I go, hey. But here's the thing, hey. An appraiser is not a voice of reason. Like I don't mean to say that appraisers are not reasonable. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't think that that buyer is crazy and seller is unrealistic, but the appraiser, well, they really know the market, and they're stepping in and saying, hey guys, everybody listen to me. Dad's about to say something.
But they do have a formula.
They have a formula, but their formula is crap.
You think so?
My opinion. I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Why is it crap?
Because what is the value of a view? I don't know. To you, a view might be $50,000. To me, a view might be $30,000.
We can play that game all day long, though.
What's
the value of a small master bathroom? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying, is that an appraiser is coming in and they are picking an exact value for a property that there's so many zillions of factors that go into.
Should the appraiser give a range?
The appraiser should give a range.
This home is worth between 1.25 and 1.4 million?
Exactly. I think that, and honestly, I know very little about the appraisal process, and I would be very interested for us to, I would grill the heck out of an appraiser in a loving way.
The appraiser would probably grill you.
Yeah, exactly. And he or she would say, stop interrupting me. But I think that what they do is they do a range, and then if the purchase price, because of course the appraiser gets the contract, so if you as the buyer are waiving the appraisal contingency or doing anything, hey, I want all the furniture in the house, hey, I'm agreeing to pay $10,000 over the appraised value, whatever, the appraiser gets it. To me, in some ways, it's like the appraiser gets the answers to the test. They know, hey, everybody in this deal wants this to appraise at least at $850 because that's the agreed upon price between buyer and seller. What my job now as the appraiser is to go, is that reasonable? Does that fit within my range? Is it, I heard an appraiser use the term bracketed, and these days, bracketed meaning that there's sales below that there's sales above that this is in the trend. But now the trend is like, screw bracketing, you're well beyond some sale that's above it. And I also think one of the challenges when it comes to appraisals, of course, is if I'm selling my house and I go into escrow today and a model match closes today, that comp, that we would always, I mean, we've talked in the past about comp bombs and zillions of different things. Hey, we've got a comp that sold 30 days ago, or excuse me, that sold today, but the buyer wrote the offer 30 days ago, maybe 35 days ago, because a typical escrow is 30 days long. And it probably took them 5 days to negotiate that. So, hey, we write the offer, then the seller has multiple offers, then they send a counter offer. Now we're back, okay, everybody agrees, and today the property closes. What I'm saying is 35 days ago, with what's happening in this market and how quickly things are changing, 35 days ago is a different market. No disrespect to the appraisers, but they're using outdated information. Even though the information is a closing today, I'm saying that the information that would really be valuable for an appraiser to know is that, so I'm in my hypothetical situation of a model match just closed escrow and I'm listing my house today or just went into escrow and an appraiser's doing an appraisal, is what else is in escrow? What are things that only go back a week or two? When we used to pull comps years ago, I would go back 90 days, 120 days. I think that it used to be that an appraiser could go back up to 6 months to find
a year
to go and pull comps. You can't pull stuff from a year ago. You can't pull stuff from 6 months ago.
You can.
Yeah, I mean you can, but it's as crazy as it sounds. It's apples and oranges. Even if it's in the same neighborhood, same all this, because the market is changing so quickly. I mean, the numbers that we've all seen are like, for a round number, I'll say like 18%. Of San Diego appreciation year over year. And of course, that isn't linear, but if it was, that's 1.5% of appreciation per month. And again, not linear, it's probably, I mean, there's ebb and flow to it. But that means that in my hypothetical of something that closes today, if it sold at $1 million, since everybody's a millionaire these days, remember when $1 million used to mean something, 1.5%, that's 15 grand.
Yeah.
That we just need to build into that. So an appraiser needs to take into account the trend, what's happening in this market. If there's 16 offers in on the property, 15 of those people aren't getting that property and they're scurrying over to the next listing when the next one comes up. That plays into value. All this to say, I completely agree that it's valuable to have more opinions, and an appraiser is another opinion. But in my opinion, the appraiser's opinion is like dad's opinion. It's valuable, we need to have it, and he can tell us about back in his heyday and when he purchased in the 1980s.
So in short, Steve agrees, appraiser is dad. All right, that took a long time to get to that. Wow. He really wanted to disagree with me so wholeheartedly that he told a 10-minute story.
There are months of pent-up interruptions that are coming.
So appraiser is, you're correct, appraiser is giving you dated information. So appraisal information is what we call lagging info.
Yes, I like that.
It's not leading info, it's lagging info. So it's always going to be a little bit behind. And that's one of the reasons you can feel a little bit of comfort in not necessarily trusting the appraisal 100% if you're going over the value. I don't think people paying above appraised value necessarily means that the market is weak or that the market is too strong or too high. I think what it means is, because I've also had the opposite happening here recently, where people have got into contract and it's appraised for above,
right?
The contract price, which everyone thought was too high. So
good job on that agent, by the way.
It does. It happens. So it goes both ways, and I'm not seeing it all just one side. And a lot of homes are still appraising. The big conflict with appraisals is, as you mentioned, the appraiser gets the contract. If we really want an appraisal done, don't give the appraiser the contract. Don't tell him anything. Say, here's the address. Appraise it. Then we'll know what the appraiser really thinks the value is. Now, our appraisers, market experts, no, but it is all they do. I mean, most appraisers are full-time appraisers.
I'm comfortable calling them market experts, but I like the term, lagging data. It's like a refinance where there's no purchase contract, so nobody has any idea. And of course, what many people do is they coach the appraiser and they say, we want it to come in around $850,000. Can you do? But you're not allowed to do that.
You can't do it at all on a
Well, yeah, you're also not allowed to write letters, but I'll tell you, on every one of my listings, we receive a letter that's like, here are our clients, here's a picture of them. Like, yes.
You're not allowed to do that?
California Association of Realtors has decided that that's discriminatory, that then a seller can make a decision based on the photo, which then leads into race discussions or sexual orientation discussions or all these different things. Now that said, we continue to receive the letters from buyer's agents, and as much as we tell them, hey, sorry, this isn't something that you can do, they still send it to them. I can't control what an agent sends to me or doesn't send to me.
Right, you're not going to report them for that.
Right,
they're trying.
Exactly, and I feel like that's the thing, as it relates to our discussion about appraisers, is this market is hard. This market is competitive. And buyer's agents are looking for any little thing that they can in order to tip the scales in their favor. And so waiving the appraisal contingency is one little thing that they can do that tips the scales. And in my opinion, a bunch of realtors that are all saying, the game is changing and it's changing daily and this is the new tactic, doesn't necessarily mean that it's propped up in a way that's unsafe or anything like that. In many ways, what that shows me is there's a tremendous amount of demand. And there is so much demand that for me, it makes me feel comfortable as an investment. Hey, if I'm buying something that 20 other people that are all qualified and all pre-approved and all are showing substantial down payments and all these different things, if they also want to buy this, then it at least makes me feel comfortable in the short term. And as we've talked about numerous times, real estate is not a short-term game. It's a long-term game.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be a short-term game. Well put. But I do think that it makes me feel comfortable in the short term knowing, hey, if there's 19 other buyers that all want to jump in on a property that's similar to mine, that then if I need to get out, this value isn't going to go to zero. Meanwhile, I'm all over the place. I'm so excited to be here. This is rad. Meanwhile, though, when you compare to something like the stock market or crypto or these other investment classes that are so volatile and all over the place and also more impacted by global, like this Ukraine-Russia stuff, that impacts my 401k. But it doesn't really impact. It probably does in some roundabout way that then it impacts interest rates and all these different, but it doesn't impact the housing market, the local housing market.
No. So it is insulation from inflation and from certain geopolitical circumstances, no question. But if you really want to feel good, I know you feel good about it because you've got 19 other buyers. If you really want to feel good about it, just look at historically any market in the past in which people were paying over appraised value. Even if you look at before the crash when that was happening, every one of those people, if they still own those homes, they're doing very well on those homes. So if you have the right timeline, as you're alluding to there, then it doesn't really matter that much. What matters is, and this is what I want to focus on, what is it worth to you? That's the only thing that matters. What is it worth to you? And if you don't know, if you're out there looking at homes and you don't know or understand, you haven't seen enough homes yet. Right. Once you've looked at enough homes, you'll know when you go in, yeah, this place is going to go for more than the list price. Yeah, this place will probably sell close to $1 million, even though it's listed for $899. Because you've looked at other homes, you've missed out on ones, you know what they sold for, you kept track of it, you're paying attention to what's going on, so you know what the value is. If you don't know what the value is as the buyer, maybe it isn't something that you should do. Once you do, once you've seen enough homes and missed out on enough properties to understand where the market is, then you can make your offer appropriate to what you believe the value is. Because that's the only thing that really matters. What the appraiser says doesn't matter. What the seller thinks doesn't really matter. Right. If you're the buyer, You are jumping into a transaction to take the wheel and steer that thing to closing. And if they don't hand you the wheel, so be it. You learn from it.
And I think that it's very well put. And I think that gathering a good sample size, keeping track of every property that you've seen, or having your agent keep track of every property that you've seen. So then when you have walked into Main Street and you're like, man, that place is a dog, and then you can see what it sells for. Did it sell at asking price, over asking price, below asking price, still on the market? All of that helps you get a picture of what's actually happening in the market. And so I think that's super, super
Learn the market. Learn the market. Learn the market. If you're a buyer and you're for homes, you don't have to sit on your heels and hope that it comes to you. You can go figure out what the market is yourself. And when you do that, you'll either find that, okay, we don't want to buy right now. The stuff that we want is just too much, and our options are to go to Arizona or Texas or whatever. Or you may go, you know what, okay, here's the deal. We were thinking this budget, to get what we want, it's going to be more like this budget. How do we make that work in our own debt structure, in our own lifestyle structure, to go from $3,500 a month to $4,000 a month, or from $4,000 a month to $4,500 a month, so that we can get the house that we really, really want? And if you can't make those changes, then it helps you understand what's going on. If you need to make those changes, it's good to know, hey, we're going to need to do this. We'll refinance a car. I'll get rid of my $1,200 car payment. I'll just get a regular, decent car.
The smug, there's a story here. There is a story.
Believe me, I've got them all. Helping people refinance cars, honestly, but not that I do refinances for cars, but encouraging people to do that when they're looking at budgetary things. A lot of times people have $600, $700, $800 a month car payment.
Right.
And when you have those car payments, you've had it for 3 or 4 years, you can go and you can refinance the $200 a month car payment.
Right.
It creates a lot of purchasing power. That might increase your purchasing power $100,000. So you still get to keep the car. Everything's cool. And actually elongating your car payment is good for your credit score too, because you don't want to pay off your car. When you pay off your car, 6 months later, your credit score drops.
Dave Ramsey is so pissed right now.
I know. Sorry, Dave. But Dave doesn't believe in credit scores. He doesn't believe in borrowing money.
Exactly.
Doesn't believe in borrowing money. So yeah, good luck with that. But if you let's still get started on Dave Ramsey. Just unrealistic is the thing with him. So if you want to have a car loan, then elongating that out isn't that big of a deal. And you look at the amount of interest you pay on a car loan at 2 or 3% interest, 4% interest for 5 years at $20,000. It's not very much. So if it helps you get the house that you want, if it helps you budget right, then that's okay. So know what you're getting into. What you don't want to do is just go, okay, do whatever it takes to get in. Then you get in and you go, well, wait a minute, we really wanted our payment to be here.
Right.
That's not fair to everyone. So don't do that. Know what you're getting into. I'm calculating payments all weekend, Steve, every weekend, right?
Yeah.
Running numbers, calculating payments.
And because the interest rates are changing, right?
Interest rates are changing. People want to know, what does it look like with this? Hey, this one has an HOA. This is in Riverside. Does it have a different tax rate? Figuring all those things out ahead of time is super, super important. But if you know that, and you know what it looks like going into it, you can feel more confident about it. I think people they become unconfident because they haven't crossed this bridge yet.
Right.
We're getting to the bridge right before they say, hey, well, I think they'll take our offer if you're willing to walk the plank.
Right.
It's like, okay, wait a minute. We should have walked out on that plank and made sure it was sturdy before we got to this point. So just get educated ahead of time. Know what you're getting into. Get a feel for the market. Listen, if you're new into this market as a buyer, you'll learn quick.
Absolutely.
It won't take long.
It's not. There's a lot of moving parts to a real estate transaction and a fair amount to the real estate process, but it's not overly complicated. You got to just get out and go. Go to open houses, have an agent take you around, get pre-approved and figure out the numbers, and you'll learn the market in 3 weeks. You'll at least be able to see what's happening today. That's critical. That's a place to start and to recognize, okay, I get it. And I just feel like when it comes to, I'm so glad you tried to interrupt and I prevented it.
Notice my manners. I'm trying to teach you.
I feel like you got to put money somewhere. With inflation at what it's at, if your money is sitting in a checking account, you're losing money. You're not keeping up. And so it's got to be invested in the stock market, saving for a down payment. You got to have some kind of plan, or in real estate. But I'm just saying that now's the time, with what is happening overall in our market, for you to be invested in the markets in some capacity. And got to have a little bit, diversified in a couple of different places, but I just feel like sometimes it's a little bit crazy making when we see all these things and there's all these different discussions, all these different reports about real estate long term is the absolute best investment, and people don't pull the trigger. And I get it, it's scary, you need to have a down payment that's, I mean, these days, 3.5, you could do FHA. It's hard to get an offer like that accepted.
I would
but
plan on conventional if you can.
I mean, if you can go conventional, which are 3 or 5 or 10 or 20% down, but there are solutions and there are options, and it just, sometimes I don't understand why people don't step into the market, because what, they're going to wait until, I want to wait until the downturn. And let me tell you, my final story, I can tell you want to jump in. March 2020.
This is a good time for me to interrupt you.
March 2020, COVID happens. I've always had, every realtor has people that say, hey, if you come across an off-market, under-market, I want to buy a steal. If we can buy something that's hundreds of thousands of dollars under market, or if the market takes a turn, let me know. So I had a list of random names that I had collected over the years. I called 25 people March 2020 and said to every one of them, hey, this is the time.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be a softening. And 25 out of 25 said, I'm not comfortable. Let me see what happens. I want to see how far it's going to go. I think that sometimes there's this thought process that, like, the market is going to shift and it's going to impact everybody else, but all of my investments will be solid, and I'm set up nicely because I'm going to be in cash and I'm going to be ready to pounce. And when that turn happens, inevitably people feel like, well, it's right here. I want to wait until it's here, because and all this to say, my experience has been they're not like ready to pull the trigger as soon as there's some kind of downturn. Otherwise, people would have jumped in I would have 20 out of 25 would have pulled triggers.
Right.
And in hindsight, they all missed out. And granted, it was kind of counterintuitive that it went down and then basically went vertical.
Went crazy from there.
But
that's kind of how it works, you
right.
know, and so that's very tough to teach. So I would encourage people, like, you know, don't think that you have to buy. You know, people will ask me this, hey, if I get pre-approved, does that mean I have to buy something?
Right.
People don't realize the lack of commitment that there actually is in this situation, and it's perfectly okay to get pre-approved, to see where you stand. First of all, make sure that you know where you stand. That's okay to do that, even if you're just totally exploring, like, hey, I just want to know where I'm at on the map. Totally okay to do that. It's also totally okay to get pre-approved and to go look at the market and see what it is.
It's so wise.
Just looking online isn't enough.
Yeah.
You have to go smell places. You have to look and touch and feel it. You have to really see it, experience it, to know what real estate is. So get pre-approved. Go look at houses. Listen, you may not find anything. You may find out that it's too big for your britches. You may find that out.
And getting pre-approved is free, and many times
free.
In doing it, you discover things. A quality lender like yourself might say, hey, what you really need is you need to save $30,000.
You need an auto loan.
You need an
auto
score. Or you need to pay off some debt.
Yeah.
Or what is all this? We've discovered there some kind of issue that
I don't know what that is.
Yes.
Well, we need to figure it out.
Let's be proactive versus, hey, we got our offer accepted. By the way, Derek, here's all my stuff. Go figure it out.
I don't get that hardly at all anymore.
Good.
I almost never get that. It used to be, for at least the last couple of years, that every other week or so, someone would call and go, hey, we got our offer accepted.
And you're like,
who are you? We're ready to do a loan. Our realtor said we should call you. And that doesn't happen anymore.
Because listing agents don't allow it.
They won't allow it.
Yeah.
The market has gotten too tight.
And I would say one of many reasons why you've had so much success is because listing agents are calling you and you're able to speak intelligently about the file. Correct. And say, I know all this information. This is a layup loan. We are going to get this to happen. You got nothing to worry about. I don't know anything about the condition of the property, and so that's certainly the buyer and the buyer's agent. But when it comes to the loan, we are solid.
Yep.
I mean, and
communication's huge.
Communication is huge. I don't think it. I would say
an important part of communication is not interrupting people.
I think the reason,
and that's all today.
and that's it. It's a wrap. I think the reason that you aren't getting those kinds of phone calls at the end is because listing agents are just, any listing agent that's worth their salt is knowing you can't just go in blind to like, well, they told me, they sent me this piece of paper, it said California Residential Purchase Agreement, and it had some electronic signatures at the bottom. This one looks good. Yeah. Let's just go with it. Yeah. You got to do some due diligence.
They're figuring it out, which is a good thing.
Yes.
Steve Ploetz, thank you so much for your time, my friend. Appreciate you. Hey, share this with your friends. Let's help make them smarter than everyone else. We'll wait until next time to shame Steve and his huge wallet.